नमस्ते व्यूअर्स, दिस इज विभूति झा, दिस इज जयपुर डायलॉग यूएसए। आपका स्वागत है। आज की चर्चा हम करेंगे ऑन अ वेरी स्पेशल मैटर। दिस इज अ वेरी स्पेशल मैटर फॉर द सिंपल रीजन दैट जिस तरह से बांग्लादेश में हिंदुओं के खिलाफ सारा मजाक हो रहा है एंड दर्दनीय मजाक हो रहा है, जिसको कि मोहम्मद यूनुस has said that all these attacks are exaggerated. That's terrible. The president of the country, caretaker president of the country, says it is exaggerated. Today, we have the privilege of knowing things on a first hand basis all the time. But I want to dedicate this particular conversation to a friend of mine in London, Mr. Krishna Tyagiji, who wrote a brilliant article on what is happening with the anti Muslim wave that is happening in Europe and elsewhere. Krishna Tyagiji is a deep thinker, and I'm really taking help of his article, which I read today morning. And that's the important part that we have to address. In India, we have seen the pathetic plight that the Indian cricket team wants to invite, BCCI wants to invite Bangladesh cricket to play games in India, particularly when so much atrocities are being committed against Hindus in that country. I think, in my opinion, that match must be cancelled. That trip and the visit must be cancelled. But let's revert to the topic. The rise of anti Muslim feeling is serious and it's tragic. Nobody needs to be happy about it. But this was coming. And this was coming primarily because the Islamic societies in European countries, particularly, have become a terrible nuisance. And there, the nuisance comes from the fact that they are not caring for the domestic people or the people who are there. And that's very important point for us to ponder over. इतना तो हम जानते हैं कि the refugee crisis in Europe, which happened in 2015, made matters worse. Prior to that, immigration was happening. The colonial powers of those years, they were importing people from Africa, India, Pakistan, the Indian subcontinent, and to fuel growth and employment and many jobs to be done. But that has gotten very bad since the 2015 refugee crisis, where millions came in. That has really changed the demographic structure of the countries involved. Just to give you three examples. Demographic shift has been critical. UK has 4.8% Muslims, Germany has 6.7%, and France has 8.8%. This is expected to go up to 8.2% in UK in a few years, 10% in Germany, and 12.7% in France. That is an actual threat. By themselves, by numbers alone, it doesn't seem to be very frightening. But what is frightening is the behavior, the lack of integration that the Muslim people do with the local communities. And I take pride in saying that we Indians are perhaps the most successful group of people who have integrated wherever they have gone without causing disruption to the local countries that they migrate to. And that's a very good thing that we Indians have that attitude. Indians, I particularly focus here on the Muslim, Indian Hindus particularly. Muslims are in their own right the way they live. Sikhs do the same thing. Others also live the same way. But it is becoming very dicey. I have often wondered, when will the physics third law of motion will get into play? And I'm glad that it is happening, because when something is unfair and wrong, it has to be resisted. It has to be altered. So look at it this way. Coexistence looks to be virtually impossible because of a couple of very powerful data points that you need to know. 50% of the French welfare system is recipients are from Islamic world. 50%, despite being less than 10% of the population base. So when you 50% people are taking advantage of the welfare process, it causes a conflict of its own. It causes a conflict of resources and how the resources are managed. You have to raise taxes to raise money to give welfare to people who don't work, who create their own ghettos and live there. Maybe there is a fault in the local system that they also fail to integrate them. That point can be argued. But what can't be argued is that these people choose to live their own life without even caring to integrate. Those who integrate, they are branded, with each as if they are the wrong guys. This is another important part, and this is creates a pressure on social housing and unemployment benefits as well. This is rampant all over the world right now. In Bangladesh, what has happened has kind of opened the eyes of the rest of the world as well. Because these days, news travels faster than the speed of lightning, as I often say. But the important issue is crime and public safety. This is some story that it is visible across the board. Whether it was in Cologne, the Christmas time, the molestation of ladies happened in Germany. You know about the grooming gangs in UK. There can't be anything more shameful that poor white girls were lured into, seduced into sexual activities and abandoned. They're famously known as the grooming gang. That is what is important here, that these people choose to enforce their own way of life on everybody else, despite being in minority. This is very significant thing to remember. And this is another data point. 60% of French prisons are full of people of Islamic faith. 60%, despite the population as yet, as of now, being less than 10%. So what is happening right now, even in the US for that matter, the entire Palestine Hamas issue that took place, the Hamas thing was very dangerous. Even the universities were failing in their effort to curb the rise of Hamas, and the Palestinians, those who are supporting this, were openly saying we are Hamas. Do you think any sane person will like that? You can draw upon the fact that, oh, Israel has done XYZ kind of atrocities. Yes, these kind of political conflicts are dangerous for the societies. But what is critical is, how do you handle that? Total disregard for rules and regulations and laws. That's what is happening. And that's what needs to be addressed. Now, this is another very important part. Radicalization and the political influence that they are wielding is again very dangerous. You have seen that the London mayor talks about that, UK needs more immigrants. You know what he's talking about. You had the situation in Scotland. When the Pakistani guy became the head of the state, he lamented and openly abused that Scotland is 90% occupation, 90% government officials and people are white. How bizarre is that? That a country which is made up of the local people, they are being accused of occupying government places because their population is high. This is a sad scenario. So the issue here is, why do these people do not integrate in the communities they go to? They want Sharia in whichever country they go to. They want the Sharia rule. They want their way of life imposed on everybody else. Is that all right? That's not okay. Definitely not. And it is important that they want to impose their will. They have their doctrine to dominate the whole world with their way of life and their conditions of religious practices. That is very significant, that if you do not resist that, you will be inundated and taken over by people who just do not agree with you. It's something like freedom for me, not for thee. And that's what is important for everybody to know, that these people have understood the mechanism of democracy in which freedoms are enshrined in our constitution and in our way of life. When somebody begins to abuse that, they have figured it out that the freedom is the fault line of democracy, and they are attacking it ruthlessly. And that's this challenge has to be dealt with carefully, but with great determination. If it is not, then we will be overrun. And that's the issue, what is important. Because in their book of instructions, violence is the name of the game. They immediately resort to street violence. You can't have the police force to contain the violence in the same way when they go on a rampage, looting, firing, lighting fire, and whatever else is there. So this is the moment of reckoning. This is 2024. This is the moment of reckoning for the rest of the world, including India, including entire Western Europe, America, that you have to deal with this menace. It has become a menace. And it is all because, forget the religion way it is. You want to practice your faith, then go wherever you have opportunity to do so. But in our way of life, if you do not integrate, and if you insist my way or highway, then you are raising conflicts in the process, and they take advantage of the rule of law. Crime takes time to punish, prosecute, and arrive at. So when Muhammad Qasab on 26/11, in famous thing in India that happened, it took 3 years to convict him. That man was moving around with an AK-47 and the guns shooting people. It took 3 years to convict, and they have understood it, that you cannot prosecute unless you prove beyond reasonable doubt. So people were raising slogans at that time. Oh, this was a poor guy, poor young man who was abused and taken advantage of by the masters. But that's the truth. If we do not address that on the issues of population, integration, in terms of the welfare exploitation of the local communities, and safety and security, if the social life is degenerated, then you do not belong there. If you are responsible for the abuse of women because they dress in a particular way, whether they are Western or Indian or anywhere else, then you have a problem. They are operating on very interesting philosophy. And this is something which my thought is. They have made four-pronged attack on democracies. Now you have on one hand, you have the extremist groups like ISIS, Al Qaeda, Taliban, and what have you, and the hundreds of Hydra headed monsters that they have created, right? They indulge in extreme violence. Then comes the second stage. They are doing everything as per Sharia. But the second group of people are the educated Muslims who tell us, oh, those people are barbaric, they are not educated, they have not developed the way we have. So bring them in so that they can see the beauty of our democracies. But these educated elites of Muslim world, they do not tell their own brethren to integrate in the local community. They don't say that. They instead ask you to accommodate them. They instead ask you to make them inclusive, whereas they are not seeking inclusion. They want to impose on you. The third group of people are, institutional framework, which I would name some of them, CAIR, CARE, and the likes, Muslim Brotherhood and others, who want to impose upon us that, hey, we are peaceful people. We also want to live here, but according to our terms and conditions. And the fourth category are those who work in mom and pop shops, or the one who work in Walmart, or various departmental store. The ladies and gents, they will change their names, or they will wear their hijab, seeking integration, not wanting it. This is what is critical. This is how the system is operating. And the rise against Islamic philosophy is only because they want to impose their will on us. And that has to be contested. Thank you very much for watching. As I always say, Satyameva Jayate. If you don't stand up for truth, truth will fail. And this is the time for us to rise. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Give your feedback, and we respect that. Thank you very much.